I reviewed the budget-friendly live-free Armory Apollo 11, one of the first 200 produced when it first hit the street in December of 2023. Put bluntly, it did not over-deliver on value. It was an inexpensive 2011 style pistol, but it had a typical inexpensive 2011 problems. Fast forward to SHOT Show in 2024, the company reached out to me requesting to chat at their booth, which was impressive. They immediately took the feedback to heart and made changes in their platform.
If you've seen the video on this one, this is a completely different gun from what I originally got to shoot, and they are listening to the feedback.
And they debuted their Commander version of the Apollo 11. So they sent me one to check out. Did they truly learn their lesson? How does the Commander shoot next to the 5-inch government model? What negatives does the pistol still have, and did Live Free Armory finally hit the formula on value? Stay tuned to find out. Welcome back to the Humble Marksman channel. I'm David, and this is the Live Free Armory Apollo 11 Commander, which means to say it is a 4¼ inch barrel. Now, what I really want to talk about is what changed about the pistol and how it compares to its bigger brother, the 5-inch version of the gun. So I'm going to keep the kind of overview type stuff very, very brief. There's 1,000 other videos on the internet, and you can go to their website and get all of that information. Before we get started, I do want to disclose to you guys how the gun came to the channel, because number one, it's legally required, but number two, it's good for you guys to know so you can make your own judgment in what you're hearing. This was a sample provided to me by the folks at Live Free Armory. I don't think the gun was cherry-picked necessarily, because I mean, it seems like a production gun that's designed to a tolerance. It very much feels in the same neighborhood as the production one that I bought that had the warranty service performed on it. So I think it is a representative sample of what you're likely to encounter should you check one out. Quick summary for those who didn't see my video on the 5-inch gun. I had a number of problems with this gun. First and foremost, the slide stop broke when I had disassembled the gun to check it out and was trying to reassemble it. The gun had extraction issues. I didn't love the way the manual safety was designed, so we'll take a look at kind of all of that stuff, how as it relates to on the new gun. But before we dive in too much further, I do want to say hello to the dads in the audience and offer you this crisp high five. I honor your dadhood with this. What kind of music most terrifies scissors? Rock music. Sorry, got carried away there. Back to my kind of invincible, suburban, dangerous, cool guy influencer persona. Has it ever occurred to you that 5'11" is like Lululemon for suburban men? All right, so we're going to get through kind of the specs as rapidly as possible, just so we can talk about what, in my opinion, really matters. The Apollo 11 Commander is a commander size 9mm 2011 style pistol that sells off their website for $980. The finish is Cerakote. It's available in 3 colors. It has a 4¼ inch bull barrel with a full-length guide rod and uncaptured recoil spring. Has an ambi safety. It has a red dirt trigger, a 3D printed grip module. More on that to come. It has a front night sight and a blacked out rear. It doesn't come with a magwell, but it has a pretty nice opening on the grip. Comes with a super nice range bag and one 17-round Checkmate magazine. The role of this pistol is recreational shooting, but it could flex into home defense or carry, because dimensionally this isn't a whole lot different from a Glock 19. A little bit longer in the grip, but it's also got a thinner slide, which makes it actually pretty nice to carry. It's compatible with all the 2011 holsters. I tried it in, so there you go. All right, so back to what changed on the pistol. So my old Apollo 11 had an issue with the slide stop. The gun still to this day is difficult to put back together to get the slide stop to go into the frame, and that has been completely cured on the Apollo 11 Commander. It goes back together just like a 19 or 2011 would you'd expect it to. The issue I had with the slide stop breaking, I talked to them about that, and that was actually a part that they had sourced from a major 2011, 1911 parts builder that you would recognize the name of, and the fact that it broke is just crazy, and just goes to show that with manufactured components, sometimes everybody has a bad run, and that was a bad run. They brought the slide stop machining in-house because Live Free Armory actually has a lot of CNC machines in a pretty big operation. They're not a small mom and pop shop. They're definitely built to operate at scale. The next issue that I had with this gun, it doesn't have it anymore, but it used to, was that the extraction and ejection wasn't great. With a 19 or 2011 pistol, especially at a price point, the tension on the extractor is not correct. So what ends up happening is the brass, as it leaves the gun, kind of comes off in an erratic position, and that's exactly what this gun did. It would have issues where the brass would try to come back to 6 o'clock, rebound off the optic, and get caught between the slide and the barrel. This was a problem that was exacerbated by the really light recoil spring that this gun had. that made it just dwell at the open position even longer. The problem could ultimately be remedied by a heavier recoil spring, but more appropriately through proper extractor tensioning. And this gun, as we'll get into with reliability, I was going to do a 1,000-round review on this gun, but the springing is set up so well, and the extractor was boringly ejecting the shell casings to the, roughly 3 o'clock position, 4 to 6 feet like you would want to see. It handled something as light as the Blazer 115s and the Buffalo Creek ammo that I like to shoot. Those reloads are excellent reloads. Ammo sponsor of the video, by the way. There's some Buffalo Creek facts down in the comments if you want to check that out. It's super soft shooting stuff. Like, seriously, it's good stuff. All the way up to the worst ammunition that I have ever done, and I've done a video on this as well. The AAC 124 grain, it's stated as being a range load of 1150 foot per second, but it's closer to 1250 foot per second out of a 4-inch gun, and the primers are notoriously hard. This gun did have issues setting off the AAC primers in a box of 50, I think like maybe 5 or 6. Had light strikes on that ammo, and it's not good ammo, guys. It's not the gun's fault. But when the ammo did go off, the, blazing hot speed of the ammo showed that the springing on the gun was well set up for, high velocity, powerful ammo, so that's all to the good. Even shooting critical defense light and the Nosler ASP hollow points, it was cycling the whole range of ammunition.
All right, the Apollo with the Nosler 115 ASP hollow points. Yep, good to go. And the only other hollow point I have is the critical defense light. If it's gonna choke, it'll be on this. It runs it. Sprung well.
So the operating window this gun is set up for is basically anything you can throw at it, and it's pleasant shooting to boot, so that is all to the good. Now, another thing that did change is that the grip module is different. You can't really tell in studio lighting, but yeah, you can kind of tell. But the grip on the old Apollo is much more of a matte, sort of cakey looking finish, whereas this is kind of shinier and looks more like, most other guns that have, molded grips, but it is just a little bit slicker than the old kind of more porous looking matte sort of grip. It's not a big difference, honestly, although I do prefer the older grip module. The other thing that changed is the manual safety. The old safety didn't have like the little leg that goes into the grip. It has an elongated pin with a notch in it, and the offside safety just kind of sort of slides underneath that notch. The new design of the safety, the paddles, number one, are bigger. It is a better footprint for a manual safety. Like, I prefer the ergonomics of the safety, the paddle, but it has that little leg that goes inside the frame, just like all the other 2011 safeties you're likely used to seeing. I do have a little gripe about it, but we'll save that for the negatives. So that all said, how does the Commander shoot next to its brother? Took it to the range to see.
All right, first test is just going to be for stability at a 10-yard bill drill. I'm going to shoot the Commander first, and then I'm going to shoot the 5-inch gun just to see what happens. 6 shots, 10 yards. Got my Shooter's Global SG Go timer. Let's see how we do, boys. All right, that's a 190. First shot's a 75. Let's see here. So it's a 27, a 23, and a 23 and a 20. And then a 22. So roughly 22 splits on that bad boy. Let's go with Mr. 5-inch. Wow. The trigger for some reason feels different on it. All right, so getting a little bit quicker, had an 18, a 23, a 47 with trigger freeze, an 18, a 24, 24, 26. The trigger just feels a little bit different, and that can be the case on a production 2011 style gun. Let's go look at the hits and see how that manifested on target. I promise they're probably more consistent with the Commander because it's able to keep a cadence and develop a rhythm versus being erratic with the 5-inch. All right, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the Commander right there with the Apollo 11. That's actually not bad at all. And predictably, because I couldn't develop a cadence and get it in a rhythm and managing the gun, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So huge spread on the Commander, and that's really coming down to me and my inability to get a rhythm with the gun. 20 yards, I've got a steel array with the Apollo guns. Gonna shoot the 5-inch first at 20 yards. All right, that's a 305, and first shot is a 90. All right. So that's a 90, a 53 split, 48 transition, a 53 transition, a 30 split, but all 6 shots connected, which is the important bit, Mr. Commander. Ooh, duffed one just high over the right of the center steel. That's a 323. Feeling sad about that, but that happens sometimes. That's a 50, 91 first shot, 50 split, 57 transition. You can see that the little bit lighter gun is making me take a little bit more care on the trigger, even though I think I prefer this thing. But let's set back at 25 and see how the groups end up. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots on the, I was aiming at the 4, so the 0 is a little bit high and a little bit left, probably mean is about right there with the 5-inch gun. Coming over here to the Commander, getting the benefit of going second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The trigger definitely on the Commander is set up better than the earlier gun, so their trigger job process has improved. It just has better feedback on how they set up the sear spring. It has a little bit cleaner brake, a little bit better over travel. It's with no adjustments. Granted, this is a 2011 trigger and you could adjust them to be whatever you want them to be. Both have excellent red dirt triggers, but they've definitely learned a thing or two since they've started making these guns.
In summary, I think I prefer at this kind of like weight point, I prefer the Commander sized gun over the 5-inch gun, because while this is a heavier gun at 35 ounces, the 32, 33 ounce gun, it just has more of its balance sort of over the trigger guard. And when you put the magazine with ammo in it, back in the heel, and those kinds of guns to me set a lot of recoil a bit faster. They're easier to swing around, like moving target to target. It's a nicer feel in the hand. So I actually prefer, I would say, the Commander in this pairing of guns, just because the longer guns, that, like if you've ever grilled a hot dog over a campfire and you've got a hot dog on kind of a long stick and you kind of, bounce it or whatever, that's what it feels like when you have a muzzle heavy gun. And it's just not as stable in my opinion. You are giving up, what was it, 30 or 40 foot per second from the 5-inch down to the 4 1/4 with a Blazer 115. The accuracy was unchanged, although if you're an irons only shooter, the extra sight radius of the 5-inch gun is probably something to consider looking at. If I were shooting irons, I would probably want the 5-inch gun. But since we live in a dot world, I am using the 4 1/4. I like it better. And with that, we'll jump into kind of the negatives. And at this point, the negatives on this pistol are very, very minor, super minor actually. My biggest gripe, my number one complaint, is that the beveling of the new design of the manual safety is not relieved enough. It's roughly like a 45-degree angle as it comes off the edge. If it was more like a 60-degree angle and a little bit more gentle, it would prevent the hot spot in the web of the hand. As it is right now, it's really not that bad. It's pretty tolerable. But if it was just, a little bit more beveled, a little bit more gentle, it would be genuinely comfortable. And I think that they probably could machine the safeties to do that since they're making their own. The next bit, and this is probably a little bit more major, is that the memory bump on the grip safety is what I would consider a little bit too shallow. While it feels nice when you're gripping it to have the bump completely go away inside the grip, what it does lead to is it's possible to grip the gun without engaging the grip safety. If you don't like actively push into the grip safety, I've got my thumb on the manual safety, you can see I can't send it. I have to actually push into the back of the gun to make the hammer fall. While I like the kind of blunted beaver tail, which is kind of nice because you're not going to impale yourself if you miss your draw, I would appreciate more bump on the manual safety for a gun that I'd consider like a serious use type gun. The grip module, as I mentioned, I don't think anybody is probably going to care enough to change it. I kind of liked the old one better, but I do think that if they went to a molded polymer grip, they could probably get even better texturing. The texture is just kind of a little slick at the top of the grip. I would, for a performance shooting machine that like a 2011 is supposed to be, a little bit better traction would be welcome, but it's not bad, honestly. Now, is the gun a good value? Now, already you know about the amazing case that I showed you earlier in the video and the fact it comes with one magazine. So I grabbed a couple other guns out of the safe to compare it to kind of get an idea of where it lands in the world of, $1,000 plus pistols. So I grabbed my Shadow 2 optic ready and my P226 Legion. As far as how the trigger is set up, the Live Free Armory trigger is the superior one out of the box. It has no creep whatsoever compared to the other two. Single action in the 226 has a little bit of creep before the hammer falls, and same thing you were seeing on the Shadow 2, where there's a fair amount of creep on the Shadow 2 trigger, but the hammer then falls. Just the slide action and the fit and feel, the CZ actually wins this. The CZ, it just feels nicest to rack the slide. The 226 feels okay, but it just feels kind of loosest. I mean, this is a duty gun. It's designed to duty, so it's, the way it is. And this gun, it feels pretty good. There's a little bit of binding of the recoil spring on the guide rod, and as the slide comes forward, it kind of binds on the disconnector just a little bit. It's in the ballpark. It's definitely in the conversation and feels like it compares to that. Just looking at the finishing and the machining on the guns, this is a Cerakote finish on the Live Free Armory. The Sig Sauer also has a Cerakote finish now. They swapped from using the PVD that didn't hold up well to Cerakote. And I would say that the 226 just has a higher level of finish, like it's almost like honed flats, whereas you can kind of see some of the lines a little bit on the Live Free Armory Apollo if you look hard enough. And the Shadow 2 just uses this like polymer goop finish on the frame, whereas they've got this black nitride slide. Slide looks super nice, but the frame, due to its kind of goopy finish, doesn't look quite as nice. The other issue is the grips. The Legion grips, as you see here, have, great texture and look really sort of high-end, very, very nice. The Shadow 2 grips, just use your imagination that they says Shadow 2 right there. They look really nice. They don't really have a lot of grip in the stock configuration. The LOK grips have amazing grip, whereas the 3D printed polymer grip module on the Live Free Armory Apollo is, it clearly is, I would say, the least flashy of the other two pistols sort of in the category. But I say all that to say that while these pistols are $200 to $300 more than the Live Free Armory Apollo, they don't necessarily put a lot of daylight between the Apollo as far as just perceived quality as you get and manipulate the gun. In some areas, the Apollo shines. In some areas, those other guns shine. So I think it is a good value for money at this point. And that's kind of where I wanted to end on this video, because this is a 2011 style pistol that sells for $980. And previously, like, the bar was set at about $1,800 to $2,000 for a 2011 that was reliable and worked well and, looked cool and all this kind of stuff. I've done video reviews on the other, $1,000 2011 pistols, and they went okay. And now the Live Free Armory Apollo is in a position where I think it does deliver on the promise of the 2011 platform at a price point that is, fair. And while $1,000 is like 2x the cost of what a good pistol kind of should be, it's not just, it's not good for a, low cost 2011. It's just a good pistol, period, at this point. It's very accurate. It shoots very nicely. It exploits the benefits of the sliding 1911 style trigger. And it's just a cool pistol at this point. You could carry this, you could put a light on it and use it for home defense if you wanted to. And it really is finally living up to its side of the bargain. And it's not just a good pistol for the money, it's just a good pistol, period. But if you're more curious in a higher dollar 2011 style pistol, this video on the Bull Armory TAC Pro is a lot of fun.